Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're exploring a massive shift that is happening right beneath our feet. And look, for anyone who wants to stay ahead of the curve, settling for a decent chatbot answer is rapidly becoming a totally outdated skill. I mean, think about it. 6 months ago, typing a clever prompt into a large language model and getting a nice little summary back was enough. Well, not anymore. The next shift is moving away from AI that just chats with you to AI agents that actually step up and do the work. The gap between those who master this kind of delegation and those who don't, it's about to get very, very expensive. So let's dive into exactly how to master this great delegation. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the next AI shift, the anatomy of an agent, the power of adaptability, why AI agents fail, the narrow focus strategy, and finally, the future of work. Section 1. The next AI shift, delegation over prompting. You know, history really is repeating itself here, and we need to make absolutely sure we don't fall into an old cognitive trap. To understand where we are right now, let's look at how we got here. The internet gave us search, right? So we all started Googling. Then AI gave us large language models, but most people are still out there treating them like glorified search engines. Thinking of an AI agent as just a smarter chatbot is a really costly mistake. Using a chatbot is honestly like sitting next to a student driver. You have to constantly guide them, correct their mistakes, and stay incredibly alert the entire time. You're white-knuckling the dashboard and prompting every single turn. An AI agent, on the other hand, is like a hired driver. You simply set the destination, hand over the keys, and kick back in the back seat. The agent handles the route and navigates the traffic, and it makes all those step-by-step decisions to get you there. It is a fundamental shift from constantly prompting to seamlessly delegating. Okay, so let's dive into our first practical takeaway. Because you might be wondering, when do I actually use an agent instead of a simple prompt? Enter the ARR Framework. You just need to ask yourself, is the task autonomous, recurring, and reviewable? If it hits all three, you've got a perfect candidate for an AI agent. For instance, having an agent read your industry news every Monday, draft a post in your specific tone, and schedule it for Tuesday. That is ARR in action. But if a task really needs your live, real-time human judgment, or if it's just a one-off thing that's only ever going to happen once, stick to a regular chatbot prompt. Seriously, that one simple distinction alone is going to put you miles ahead of most people. Section 2, Anatomy of an Agent, Under the Hood. We hear the word agent thrown around everywhere lately, but let's actually look under the hood. Because the core mechanical difference between a chatbot and an agent is just fascinating. A chatbot, at its core, simply predicts the next word based on probabilities. If you type, "Jack fell down and broke his," the underlying language model doesn't actually know the nursery rhyme. It's just converting your words into numbers called tokens, analyzing the math, and guessing that the word crown makes the most mathematical sense to come next. An agent actually has that exact same language model sitting at its center, but its objective isn't just to predict a word. Instead, it actively decides the next action based on a specific goal you gave it. Think of it like this. When you trigger an agent, you are essentially activating 4 distinct virtual workers that surround that central language model. First up, you have the analyst, who finds the patterns. Second, the planner, who decides what actually matters. Third, the operator, who gets their hands dirty and does the work. And fourth, the auditor, who checks the results and the logic. Let's make this real for a second. Imagine you instruct an agent to review a week's worth of messy customer support tickets every Monday at 7 a.m., identify the biggest issues, and email your leadership team a brief. The analyst reads those tickets to find the patterns. The planner figures out what belongs in the brief. The operator writes and sends the email, and the auditor double-checks for weak logic or missing context before hitting send. You didn't write or analyze a single thing. You literally assigned the job of 4 people to a single agent. Section 3. The power of adaptability, handling the unexpected. Now, the ability to just blindly execute a plan is great, but the real magic, and frankly the true test of an agent, is what happens when things go wrong. To really understand this, we have to look at a brilliant concept discovered back in the 1950s by Air Force Colonel John Boyd during the Korean War. He was intensely studying why American F-86 pilots kept beating Soviet MiGs, even though the MiGs were technically superior. They were faster and could climb higher. So why did the Americans keep winning? Boyd discovered that American pilots had better visibility from their cockpits, which allowed them to adapt faster. They operated inside what he famously called the OODA Loop: observe, orient, decide, act. They essentially got inside the enemy's decision cycle. Well, in the world of AI, this is exactly what separates a true agent from basic, rigid automation. You have to ask, can the agent go through its own OODA loop when the obvious path breaks down? Let's apply this OODA loop to everyday life. Imagine you have an automated workflow that builds your grocery list every Friday. It works perfectly until your usual item is out of stock and you just so happen to have 6 friends coming over for dinner. That workflow completely breaks. It has no idea what to do because it's designed to be blindly obedient. On the flip side, imagine an AI agent tasked with that exact same goal. It observes the missing item, it orients itself by checking your calendar and seeing that dinner party, it decides on appropriate substitutes and adjusts the quantities for 6 people, and then it acts by rebuilding the entire order. A basic workflow follows a rigid process, but an agent intelligently reroutes the whole plan. Section 4. Why AI agents fail. Human problems. So, if agents are really this autonomous and adaptable, why on earth do they still crash and burn so often out in the real world? Well, here is the harsh truth. Most AI problems are just human problems in disguise. An agent is just a mirror. It is not magic. It's a multiplier. There's this fascinating story in the source material about a highly successful consumer company CMO. They openly admitted they couldn't unleash AI on their customer acquisition efforts because they didn't have clean processes or the right people in seats to define the logic yet. Give an agent vague goals and sloppy directions, and I promise you, it doesn't fix your bad thinking. It just formalizes it. It amplifies your sloppiness, and it will drive the car straight into a tree way faster and with way more confidence than you ever could. Because of that, before you even think about handing over the keys, you absolutely must run a GPS check. This is your second major framework for this explainer. G stands for goal. Can you define the specific goal clearly in one single sentence? P stands for proof. Can you identify what good actually looks like, and how will you even know if the agent got it right? And S stands for steps. Can you describe every single step clearly without hand-waving or just assuming the AI knows what you mean? If you cannot define these 3 elements precisely, your agent is guaranteed to fail. To show you what I mean, there is a massive gap between a failing instruction and a successful one. A vague instruction like, summarize my emails every morning, sounds totally fine to a human, but to an agent, it entirely lacks proof and detailed steps. Now, compare that to a GPS-checked instruction. Every morning at 7 a.m., read my unread emails, categorize them by urgency, draft replies to routine messages, and flag anything from my top 5 customers. That massive gap between a loose command and a fully mapped-out process, that is exactly where the mess lives. The people who win in this era are going to be those who understand their own work deeply enough to define it with this level of precision. Section 5. The narrow focus strategy. Solving specific pains. So how does all this precision actually translate to the business world? Well, most companies are just blindly trying to sprinkle broad AI intelligence everywhere they can. The companies actually winning the agent era are obsessively narrow. Their entire strategy is to find a highly specific task that people hate doing but absolutely must do repeatedly. For example, there was a construction software demo recently for a single agent focused entirely on one incredibly specific problem, collecting field data for a specific type of customer in a very specific situation. It was not a general intelligence bot, but when the presenter put a QR code up on the screen to access it, literally every single hand in the room shot up to take a picture. Why? Because it solved a very specific, very real pain point they had been suffering through for decades. Right now, narrow ownership is the ultimate opportunity. And honestly, we need to get narrow, and we need to do it quickly. We are rapidly entering an age where the ratio of AI agents to human beings on this planet will be greater than 1. Let that sink in for a second. For every traditional software company that exists today, there is going to be an agent company actively trying to dethrone it by understanding one workflow, one market, and one specific user pain better than anyone else. Section 6. The future of work. Decoupling income. So, what does this all mean for you, for your career, and for the actual value of human judgment? Well, AI is essentially a giant decoupling machine. Think about it. For almost all of modern history, your income has been tightly linked to your hours. Even at the absolute highest executive levels, you are fundamentally trading your time for decisions. AI agents are severing that link for the very first time. They handle the execution work, which allows you to step back and entirely scale your judgment in the areas where it actually matters most. And this brings us to what is probably one of the most profound ideas in this entire explainer. When output becomes infinite, taste becomes scarce. We are entering an era where content, code, and analysis are becoming super cheap and practically infinite. When raw intelligence and output become that cheap, human judgment becomes the ultimate premium skill.
Every single time you use that GPS framework to clearly define a task for an agent, you aren't just training a piece of software. You are clarifying your own standards. You are learning what good work actually looks like.
Now, I know the common fear is that AI is going to turn us all into machines, but the reality is actually the exact opposite. Ironically, AI will make human life less robotic. Yes, roles are absolutely going to be reshaped. Junior analysts, coordinators, paralegals, their day-to-day is going to look entirely different. But remember, every major technological disruption creates entirely new roles. Before the internet, the job of an online community manager was completely unimaginable. AI agents are going to take the robotic, highly repetitive tasks off our plates, leaving us with the inherently human work of taste, strategy, and real connection. Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative question. The shift is happening right now. Will you shape it, or will you get shaped by it? The most valuable person in the future is no longer the one who can just process information the fastest. It's the person who can define good work, spot bad work, and knows exactly when to trust an AI agent and when to rely on a human being. So take that ARR framework. Use the OODA Loop to demand true adaptability, run your GPS checks, and start delegating. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and take control of your AI journey.